Order up, baby. 50 pieces coming in hot right now with my top 50 prospects new on the draft menu. Mel Kiper Jr. is going to weigh in to tell us which players are too high, which players are too low, and let's be honest, mostly just tell me how right I was. That's coming up. Plus, we're responding to your questions, your takes, your draft dreams live as first draft starts right now.
I'll just pat myself on the back for two things that I hit on. The NFL draft being so popular and Kim Kiper being incredible.
Okay,
Those were two things.
You said you got to correct me earlier. Let me correct you. You said you overachieved on Kim Kiper. Way overachieved. Overachieved. All right, so let me just make sure that we have the right emphasis there. Yeah, you can't argue with that. I am Field Yates. We are with you live twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, on the NFL on ESPN YouTube channel. There he is. Mel, you definitely nailed that marriage way back in the day when you found the lovely Kim Kiper to spend the rest of your life with. And on top of that, Mel, she's also your barber. I learned that today, and the hair is looking phenomenal.
Yeah, final haircut before the draft, Fielding. So we're all done with that nonsense, right? Got that out of the way. Now we can focus on Field's top 50, which kind of surprised me. Some of these rankings that you have, Fielding, I hope you tweak them a little bit, but we're going to pick them apart today, pal.
Yeah, I got some news for you, too, here, Mel. My wife got me a haircut as well before the draft. She got it on Christmas for me. That was her Christmas gift from
you're not touching that hair the rest of the way.
I haven't touched it. I don't plan on touching it anytime soon. Mel Kiper Jr. here at your service. As Mel mentioned, we're going to dive into my top 50, which is always being touched up and updated, but a new version dropped this past Saturday morning. And if you want to see what we have talked about in prior episodes, hit that or scan that QR code on the bottom right portion of your screen. The full list is available of my top 50 on ESPN.com, but let's get right to it. We're going to start, Mel, with the top 10. We're not going to belabor this too much because I think people know how we feel for the most part, but here is a general look of players inside the top 10. That includes Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter at the very top. We'll move a little bit further down that list, just a little bit, to number 5 overall, and that is Will Campbell, the left tackle from LSU. And Mel, just last week at LSU's Pro Day, Will Campbell measured and had his arms measured by an NFL scout, not by the school. And he's got those go-go gadget arms now. He's all the way up to 33 inches for his arm length for Will Campbell after being 32 and 5/8 of an inch at the combine. Hibachi Boy on Twitter jokes that he was stretched out a la Bart Simpson by a dog and a cat way back in the day. All right, so Mel, I'm more optimistic on Will Campbell at number 5. Your thoughts here on Will? Is your contention with me having Will Campbell at number 5 overall that you just don't believe he's a left tackle? Or is it, even if you do think he's a left tackle, you just don't think he's a good enough player to merit 5th overall contention?
Well, you had it up there, tackle guard, Field, so you don't really know.
Left tackle, me. Left tackle.
Right, but I'm saying on the screen it said tackle guard. That's the way I'm looking at it because I don't think you can know for sure that Will Campbell's going to be an elite left tackle because he's an outlier with that arm length that barely makes 33 if it really does. So I think you're projecting inside. I get it. It's happened before. It will happen again. But you're talking about the 5th best player on your board, Field. I think at 9, 10, I'm okay. And I guess we're nitpicking here a bit. I just thought 5 was awful high. Some of the guys that are givens, we know what we're getting with, say, a Tyler Warren, right? We know what we're getting with him. I think you're looking at Armand Membo now. You know what you're getting now, a tackle. You look at a guy like Will Campbell. Yes, he could be a left tackle. Maybe he'll be an elite left tackle. You never know because he had a heck of a career there. No question about it, Field. But if you're talking about maybe projecting him inside, move him to right tackle, 5th is high for me. It's a little rich. If the arm length would have been, like I said, 33 and change, I would have said, okay, I can live with that. But when you're like, you got to have parameters, Field. You really have to. And you got to be disciplined enough in your approach to be able to say, hey, he just didn't make the cut here in terms of what the parameters are, what that range is. And because of that, I think 5 for me is high. You obviously don't. We'll see what happens. It's going to be fun to see if Will Campbell can get the job done at that left tackle spot.
Yeah, all my discipline goes towards my hair texturing, Mel. I don't have any discipline with my rankings. You know that. I would just say this. What I don't agree with there is saying, like, we'll see on Will Campbell, like, you have a better sense of what guys are going to be a la Tyler Warren or Armand Membo. I think I know who Will Campbell is, right? He's played 3 seasons. High leverage opportunity, by the way, right? Protecting for Jaden Daniels and then Garrett Nussmeier, starting off as a true freshman left tackle for LSU, a school that has had no shortage of offensive linemen, wind up in the NFL. Like, to me, he's played under the spotlights of being the left tackle for LSU, playing in the SEC, which once it's expanded, only made the competition he saw week in and week out that much more difficult. Did an admirable job for 3 straight seasons. And I love what Will Campbell talked about at some point towards the end of this past season at LSU, how, he kind of got he sort of had like the iron sharpened for him early on in his career. I think it was Jared Verse he faced off. Of course, the great Los Angeles Rams defensive end. He kind of ran right through Will Campbell. It was a wake-up call for Will, right? And it was, if I get down right now, I've got no chance of bouncing back up. You got to find a way to stay mentally tough. I think the combination of the foot quickness, not the length, but everything else, foot quickness, the attitude, the maturity, the high-level character, the great hand placement and pass protection, the ability to absorb power and keep his balance. All those things for Will Campbell make me feel like I do know what he is. Even if he ends up becoming a guard, I still think it's a very high-level player, a very, I think, high level, high ceiling, but also safe prospect. Mel, this class is just so different, as we've talked about for the past 7 months now. Not as many blue chip players compared to others in prior drafts, especially last year's, where we felt like we had, 8, 9, 10 guys who were going to have potential all-pro careers. Not too far down from Will is a different Will. It's Will Johnson, and we've talked about this player a ton since the beginning of the process. When we were first getting started with our watch list, it was guys like Will Johnson from Michigan and James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee and Michael Williams from Georgia, and even his former teammate Carson Beck, the quarterback, who ends now at Miami. But Will Johnson plays 6 games this past season, Mel. He ends up with 2 interceptions, both of them returned to the house for a touchdown. He's 10th on my big board. He's been one of the hardest players to feel out, Mel, for the past, let's call it 5 months, because of the fact that he didn't play after his final 6 games, didn't go to either one of the Senior Bowl showcases or either one of the All-Star Game showcases, went to the Combine and did nothing. To my knowledge, did nothing at the Michigan Pro Day. So where have you landed on Will Johnson? Is 10 about right, too high, or too low?
Well, for me, it's a little bit high, and I think it's not much. I mean, I'm going to be around that 12 mark. I think I'm going to have my new rankings coming out on Wednesday of this week, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week. Bottom line is, Field, you were the one that warned us back in September, October.
Yeah.
About Will Johnson, is he going to have the recovery speed? And you had concerns about that. We still don't know. We know Will Johnson anticipates, right? He has all those pick sixes. He's a difference maker in that secondary. I mean, his anticipation, the way he closes, the way he reads the quarterback, love all that. But I thought you, Mr. Field Yates, would have him a little lower because back in September, October, you were putting out the warning sign.
Yeah.
So with the warning sign, I really did. Seriously, I thought you would have him come in around 15. I thought that would be your number.
Right.
And where you have him, a 10, just a little high for me since I'm even at 12 and I was higher than Will Johnson than you were. So we kind of flipped it. I thought you'd be behind me at 15. Instead, you're ahead of me at 10. Not a lot, Field, but I thought you would move him down just a bit more than you did.
Yeah, I want to peel back the curtain for people that either weren't watching/listening or just don't remember the conversations we had, because it almost blew Greeny's mind when we talked about this, Mel, but it was early in the season, right? And it was, I had gotten some heads up from scouts that basically, I think I had a watch list or a top 25 or a mock draft, whatever it was, August, September, where everything is so subject to change, obviously. But, scouts are digging in on these players. And some of the feedback I got was, love the player, love a lot of what he has done. When he's healthy, he's outstanding. But I'm not so sure that you're going to have a guy who might be closer to 4.5 than 4.4 in the top 10 picks. I will be honest with you, Mel. I'm not sure I've ever really seen speed be a deficiency of the game of Will Johnson. That's kind of where I land with Will Campbell and the arm length too, is he's got 32 and 5/8 or 33-inch arms, depending on which event we were measuring him at. I didn't feel like the length really bothered him. Has the speed, in your estimation, did it feel like it was an area of significant deficiency for him when you watched him over these past 3 seasons?
No, because he reads the quarterback so well. I think he anticipates the route, and he is basically running the route with the receiver. You see that a lot with Will Johnson. I like the kid. I just was thinking Field's going to have him down the line, and this is a reaction to your top 50.
Yeah.
And that's where I said, I'll be interested to see. You got a mock draft coming out. Where do you have him? He is, and you said it, when you have a tough player to evaluate, okay? And we would say because of the injury this year, people forget, he didn't even play in that Ohio State game. At the end of the year, he was out. So they beat Ohio State without him. They beat him also without Colston Loveland. But to Will Johnson, not being able to finish it out, season, go through the process healthy. And then you had questions even before that when Will Johnson was out on the field. So when you get a guy that you have kind of that, I'm not really sure, because there's always going to be players, Field, you just don't know. You don't have strong conviction about, okay? Those are the guys I think you're more conservative with in terms of grade. You'll move them down just a bit because you're not really sure if they're going to be really good. Maybe is there a bust potential or he's going to be okay? But with Will Johnson, you kind of kept him up there at that 10 spot. That's the only thing I would say for somebody that you just said. I don't really have a great feel for what kind of pro Will Johnson's going to be.
Yeah, it's a very big question mark. I mean, Mel, I think about last year too, and just a reminder to people is the next, call it 25 to 30 days unfolds, both the finishing touches of the pre-draft process and then the draft itself is, remember last year, Dallas Turner was like consistently as high as 8 and as low as maybe 10th or 11th in the overall rankings. Then he goes 17th during the draft, and we're all sitting there like, what happened to Dallas Turner, right? There are certain guys that are just a bit harder to place for very different reasons. I think Will Johnson fits into that category. I'm not saying he's a guarantee to drop, but the feel I have for him is a lot less firm than I do for other players. I'll just say based off what I have watched over the past 3 seasons from Will Johnson, the tape when he is healthy and available is just so good. You saw the 2 interceptions this year. He returned for a touchdown, had that huge pick against Washington in the national championship game last year. I'll always stand on this moment, Mel, and it's not one moment that makes a player, but for a guy who is 6'1", close to 200 pounds, like Will Johnson, last year, so 2023, they were playing against Purdue. Purdue at the time had a wide receiver named Deion Burks, who's now at Oklahoma, a guy who might go pretty high in next year's draft. Deion Burks is this shifty, jittery bug, slot wide receiver. He's got tons of speed as well. Michigan just said, you slow that guy down. And when he could follow, match, mirror a guy like Deion Burks, I'm thinking to myself, well, if he can cover the big perimeter guys on the outside and he can cover the shifty guys on the inside, what more could you want from a cover corner? I also, last note on Will Johnson before we move on to the next block of players here, Mel. Get used to stuff like this, right? I think the possibility of guys who miss half a season and then do nothing during the pre-draft process is going to become a borderline regularity, whether it should. Some of these guys say to themselves, what more do I have to prove? Jaden Daniels didn't even weigh in at the combine last year, Mel, and went on to have the greatest rookie season in the history of the NFL. All right, we're going to leave it there in the top 10. We don't need to go through those guys too much more because we've talked about them so much. But when we come back, we are diving into players 11 through 25 on my updated and always being updated top 50 big board. More First Draft in just a moment. We are back here on First Draft. He is Mel Kiper Jr. I am Mel Kiper Jr., a.k.a. Field Yates. Players 11 through 25 are up next here, Mel. Let's take a look at a full screen of players 11 through 17. We'll start there. Includes a tight end in Colston Loveland, my number 1 ranked true wide receiver, Tedero McMillan. I've got Shedeur Sanders at 16, Gray Zabel at 17, one of the biggest movers during the pre-draft process. Players 18 through 25 include a pair of Longhorns and Jahdae Barron, Matthew Golden. A couple guys that I am higher on, I believe, than consensus include Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, plus Max Hairston, who you and I have loved for a long time, Kentucky cornerback. Jahad Campbell, because of the labrum surgery, has dropped to 23. I just don't think that can be ignored throughout this process. All right, so Mel, let's start here on Shedeur Sanders. Everybody wants to ask about him. We have a big gap here. Do you think, and this question comes from Salty Sarsaparilla on Twitter, that Shedeur Sanders could have an Aaron Rodgers-like drop in the first round of the draft? What do you say?
I would say it's a salty. That would be a shocker to me, but shockers happen, and you can't predict shockers. Aaron Rodgers projected to be number 1 in the draft, and he drops to 24 to Green Bay. That can happen. I have said 6 of the 8 drops, quarterbacks that dropped, have turned out to be really good. 2 that didn't were the 2 Notre Dame quarterbacks, Brady Quinn and Jimmy Clausen. So if you do slide, the sliders have done really good in the NFL, so it's not a bad thing. Do I think Shedeur will get down there? No, I don't. I still think he goes to the Giants at 3. But I think Shedeur on your board fielding is at 16. Come on, man. That's a 16 field?
16,
yes. All those. I mean, come on, 16? I mean, I think when you look at where he is on my board right now, he'll be at 5 in that area. In terms of the update that I do, and I've kind of been steady and consistent with Shedeur Sanders all year. I'm at 5, you're at 16. So you're thinking he'll be serviceable, he'll be okay. You don't see greatness with him because he doesn't have the great arm, doesn't run a 4.6 40, isn't 6'4". You're looking at measurables with Shedeur. And I see what you're doing here, Field. You're saying he doesn't have explosive arm, speed, all that. Like I say, 6'1", 212, not 6'4", 215. I get all that stuff. But I'll ask you this. What type of quarterback? Because you're still at 16. You're not at 56 here, okay?
Yeah.
Still think he'll be pretty good. I think he can be really good. I think he can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback in this league. I love Shedeur Sanders. You, I guess, are lukewarm. You like him. You don't love him. We got into that like and love stuff.
Yeah.
Just explain Shedeur Sanders and why he's so low on your board.
You did a pretty good job there, by the way, of kind of pointing to the traits that I was going to point to. All right, let's talk about the build here right away, Mel. So you mentioned he is, 6'1 3/4 and 212 pounds. Cam Ward in that same territory as far as size is concerned, with one notable difference, right? Cam Ward can get himself out of trouble because Cam Ward is a much superior athlete to Shedeur Sanders, who's not a terrible athlete. I hear people saying, like, you guys are bashing him too hard for the lack of athleticism. He is a better runner than some of the quarterbacks you see in the NFL. That's correct, but not a lot of them. Let's be clear, Mel. We are in this, I would say, this peak era of quarterback athletic ability in the NFL, right? I mean, like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, guys of that caliber, Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels at the very top of the heap. Obviously, those guys are rare, exceptional athletes. But, Patrick Mahomes is not somebody that's going to have, in most years, he's never going to have 1,000 rushing yards. But Mahomes is dangerous as a running quarterback. That much is for sure. The number of guys that play sort of exclusively from the pocket right now is really dwindling. It's the types of players like Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins if he ends up as a starter. I think where Shedeur Sanders could end up, though, is like where Kirk Cousins was as a starter, which Kirk Cousins, for a long time, pretty good starter, right? Like, I don't think anybody ever said this is a top 8 quarterback in the NFL. But I think somewhere in 10 to 14 range is good. Accuracy is really good. He sees the field well. He's extremely experienced. He's taken a million hits. He always bounces back up, and he always finds a way to keep on going. But the ball doesn't fire out of Shedeur Sanders' hands in the same way that it does other players. And Mel, the number of sacks taken last year are certainly tied to the offensive line play in Colorado. I believe that wholeheartedly. I also think he needs to play more urgently in the pocket. And that's something that I don't know that it happens overnight, right? You got to find a way in the NFL to live with 2nd and 14 as opposed to 2nd and 20. There's just a big difference there. I get it. You don't want to take a sack, period, but 2nd and 14 versus 2nd and 20 is a much superior outcome. There's a lot to like about Shedeur. There is. Last year we talked about conviction with J.J. McCarthy. What level of conviction do you have on him? Which is why I had him at 17th. I'm just not as convicted on Shedeur as I am with Cam Ward, who is all the way up to number 6 on my big board now.
Yeah, you made a comment during that Shedeur Sanders evaluation that you said, well, Cam Ward escapes and Cam Ward can create. And Shedeur is a pocket guy and he puts pressure on the offensive line. That's what I said about Tom Brady. And exactly what you said about Cam is what I said about Giovanni Carmazzi. And others said about Giovanni Carmazzi coming out of Hofstra. That's why he was a 3rd-round pick when Tom Brady was at the end of the 6th round. Because, Carmazzi was athletic, could escape and do all those things and create. I'm not saying it's going to be that way, but I get that's why Tom Brady was a late 6th-round pick. Because people questioned that 5.24 speed. They questioned the ability to be athletic, 24 vertical. Arm strength has improved with all these quarterbacks. I keep bringing it up because it's an important thing to note. You talk about explosive arm he lacks. Arm strength has been proven time and time again to be able to get better once you're in the NFL. And I think with Shedeur, that will happen. Taking sacks, you got to know when to take a sack. 1st, 2nd down, no. 3rd down, don't throw it up for grabs. Take the sack. So knowing when to take a sack. They always say, don't make a bad play worse, right? Yeah. Turn it over. Force it. Punt the football. Punt's better than a turnover. Knowing when to do that. If you get behind the sticks on 1st, 2nd down, you have 1st down sack, 2nd down sack, you're done. The series is over. 3rd down, that's when you got to know what you're doing, okay? And don't worry about, being the hero there, playing hero ball. Punt the football. So I think Shedeur will get that. That offensive line 2 years ago was awful, okay? This year it got a little better, but it still wasn't great. So at the end of the day, Shedeur has already had 2 years of living and learning and working through that. That will help him and assist him in the NFL where there's always a crowded pocket. Some of these other quarterbacks never had to deal with that field. They didn't. Everything's clean. Okay, everything's clean. They still get reckless. Cam Ward, reckless, careless with the football at times. Shedeur Sanders, to me, you mentioned others. How about Joe Burrow? He wins from the pocket. Tom Brady won from the pocket at age 44.
Yes, yeah.
This notion that you got to be a runaround, scramble, creative guy, and you can't win from the. I've been battling this field 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. People were saying those quarterbacks are dinosaurs. Yeah. No, they're not.
They're not. No. But there's a big difference between Joe Burrow and Shedeur, though, I believe. Joe Burrow has the best in-pocket navigation of any quarterback in the league. Like his feel in the pocket, he has a 6th sense or a 7th sense because he might already have a 6th sense for all I know. So, hey, we need to find a way. What we need to do here, Mel, is I don't exactly know how this can work. We'll take suggestions from the peanut gallery. Comments, send us a tweet, whatever. we have to find a Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward wager of some sort. I don't know what it is. We got to figure this out because Cam's going to go ahead of Shedeur. Cam's going number 1 overall, right? Yep. But it's like rookie season success. I'm not sure if that's large enough of a sample size. Like,
I only care about how they play once they're in the league for 4 or 5 years. What are we looking at? 3, 4, 5 years down the road?
Yeah, 5 years from now, Mel and I will still be doing this show here. You better still be doing this show right here, right now, Mel. We're going to be finding our way 4 or 5 years from right now, and we will revisit this conversation on Shedeur Sanders. Fascinating player. And by the way, I'm heading out to the Colorado Showcase on Friday of this week. So we'll talk again on Wednesday about my mock. But I'll go out and see Shedeur live and in person. And if I had to guess, probably a ton of NFL personnel as well. We'll be descending on beautiful Boulder, Colorado. We could talk about Shedeur for the entire show here, Mel. But coming up next, we have players 26 through 35. And we have some interesting debates as well right there. Don't miss it here on First Draft. All right, moving along here on First Draft. He's Mel Kiper Jr. I am Field Yates. We are close to halfway through the first 50 players on my big board ever being updated. That being said, Saturday there was a new run. Let's take a look at players 26 through 35 and give a little bit more meat to these. All right, here we go. Omarion Hampton, Walter Nolan, Josh Simmons, James Pierce, Nick Emanwori, Josh Connerly, Donovan Ezeiruaku with Kenneth Grant from Michigan, and Emeka Ibuka plus Jaxson Dart, 33, 34, 35. Mel, I'm going to say this quickly, and then we can get into the specific debates you want to have. 26 through 40 feels very similar to me. Not sure I see a bunch of big gaps in some of the guys that are going late 20s versus some of the guys that are going to go late 30s. That's how I feel about it. But let's start with Omarion Hampton here, Mel. Yeah. I know you're much more optimistic here than I am. I guess Omarion Hampton, he's a great player. I mean, this guy back-to-back seasons with 1,500-plus rushing yards. He had 67 catches over the past 2 years, ran a 4.46 at 219 pounds. I just can't get on board with the idea that the gap between him and Ashton Jeanty is that narrow, Mel. What gives you the confidence that maybe it's closer than I see it?
Well, I think everything he did over a 2-year period at North Carolina, the burst, the way he hits that, you talk about traffic, gets through traffic, gets the daylight, and then he can go the distance. I think you look at that ability, you talk about the ability of Jeanty to break tackles, contact balance. Omarion Hampton has breakaway ability, and he's a big back. He will bust through. He will be a guy in short yards and goal line situations, will continue to get the job done, catch the ball, block as well. The consistency from week to week for Omarion Hampton was outstanding. I did not think there was much of a gap. I talked to some teams who agree with that. I've always liked Omarion Hampton a lot. Drake May loved having Omarion Hampton there a couple years ago. To me, to say at 26, and I think you have Ashton Jeanty around the 4-spot field, to me, that's a huge difference. I'm a lot closer than you are. I'm at Jeanty at 4, but I'm at Hampton in that 10, 11, 12 area. So you think he's going to be, I guess, serviceable. I think he could be a hell of a player in the NFL.
Well, he's still a
you're the Dallas
grade,
Cowboys,
right?
You're the Denver Broncos. He's going to be an all-around complete back that doesn't lack in any area. He can run inside. He can bounce it outside. He can go the distance. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he can block. And if you can do all that in your rookie season, you will be doing what Jeanty does. If he goes to the Raiders, wherever Ashton Jeanty goes, you will be doing the same thing. Then to me, there's a drop-off. You said there's a drop-off after Jeanty to Hampton. I think it's Jeanty, Hampton close, and then a little bit of a drop-off. So I see the gap more between 2 and 3 in terms of running back than 1 and 2. I think 1 and 2 are right here.
Yep.
Okay. 2 to 3 is like down here.
Yeah.
So I think
there's a gap there too.
Big difference.
Yeah, there's a gap between 2 and 3 in my opinion as well. I'm trying to succinctly describe the differences that I see between these two players. I'll say this, the level of explosion I think is different. I know that Ashton Jeanty did not run a 40 during the pre-draft process. Probably no need to for him. I think he's at least plays a lot faster than Omarion Hampton. And just the contact balance, that to me is the rarest of traits that Ashton Jeanty has as opposed to Omarion Hampton, who's a really good player. You're going to see a bunch of explosive runs from this guy. You're going to see breakaway speed for this player. I just feel like when I'm watching Ashton Jeanty, I don't care if he's playing against some Mountain West team or Oregon in the 3rd week of the season last year. Every week, he's like a human pinball machine who just keeps going and going and going. All right.
Hey. No argument there, Phil. I love Ashton Jeanty. No argument there. Everything about Ashton Jeanty screams Rookie of the Year candidate. Yep. No doubt about it. I just think the gap's too much. We got another player, Field, on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
You're way off one.
Donovan Ezeiruaku from Boston College. Ooh, okay, this is interesting. All right, so I'm assuming you're going to say that you're higher on this player than I am, who had an amazing season last year. 16 and a half sacks. He's got tremendous length. This is Donovan Ezeiruaku. Who had, and I know that we don't only care about the combine, but the combine was wonderful. The best three-cone, the best short shuttle of any of these edge rushers here, Mel. Last year, Bill O'Brien, the head coach of Boston College, said he did something that defensive ends don't normally do. They won games for us. He won games basically by himself last year, the Donovan Ezeiruaku. I think the player is awesome, Mel. The one thing holding Donovan Ezeiruaku from being higher up my board was this. Is an offensive line say, we're going to run right at number 6.
Yeah.
Are they just going to grind right through Donovan Ezeiruaku, who doesn't have as much inline force and power to set the edge and be at the point of attack like some of the other rushers a little bit higher up on the board do? That, to me, is the big differentiator from Ezeiruaku being 22 versus 32.
All right, I'll give you why he should be higher. Michael Williams.
Yep.
Ezeiruaku's a better pure pass rusher.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
After Abdul Carter, you can make an argument Ezeiruaku's the second best pure pass rusher in this draft, maybe even ahead of Mike Green, who I love.
Right there for those two. Yep.
Ezeiruaku has one thing going. He doesn't have that great size like Michael Williams. He's not imposing. He's not a look-the-part guy, okay? But he has great length. Great length for that size makes up for it in terms of pass rush. The bend off the edge is outstanding. The repertoire of moves is phenomenal. The closing speed is outstanding. The want to, the motor, the intensity is there. He's slippery against the run as well. I agree with you. He could get swallowed up. That could be an issue, sealing the edge and doing the things you need to do there. That could be an issue. But for Michael Williams and those others, could be an issue getting after the quarterback to the level Ezeiruaku does. I think he's a double-digit sack guy. Love the kid. I got him around. I'm going to have him on my big board coming up tomorrow, right around that 20 spot. So we're about 12 off on him.
All right. What I will say about Ezeiruaku, Mel, is I think that him going later in the first round is actually better for him. And here's the reason why. The further away from number 1, that means the better the team is this past year, right? If he goes to Kansas City, Buffalo, your Baltimore Ravens, you name it, Mel, that guy doesn't need to be the player that sets the edge. He needs to be the player that when Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry race Baltimore out to a 21-0 lead over the Steelers in the playoffs, they say, all right, Donovan Ezeiruaku, number 6 or whatever number you end up wearing in the NFL, rush. You go get Aaron Rodgers or Jaxson Dart, whoever the Steelers have under center next year. So in some ways, there are players who are more of these designated pass rushers, at least at their core, that might benefit from going a little bit later because they get to do what they have done at the highest level for a much higher frequency. All right, quickly here, Mel, just really quickly, because we are certainly far, far apart on this one. I've got Jaxson Dart, 35th overall, Mel, here. I just talked about conviction earlier with Shedeur Sanders. I don't have the same level of conviction on Jaxson Dart. I'm sure you have the same traits in mind that you like. How high are you now on Jaxson Dart?
He's going to fall right in that 15, 16, 17 range on my big board field. Jaxson Dart has a really good skill set, and he has the attitude, the approach I like. And I think you look at the ability to come from that RPO offense, I think he has that talent. I think he's the kind of guy you talk about. If he gets in the right offense and he gets a year to basically sit, watch, and learn, has a little bit of time and isn't force-fed, like we expect some quarterbacks to automatically be, with him, I think the time will be there if he goes to the right organization. Jaxson Dart, his legs are phenomenal. I mean, he can beat you athletically with his speed. He can kill a defense in that area on third down. In those situations where you're in man, he can go for a lot of yards. And the arm strength is good. There's nothing wrong with his arm. Some of the throws he makes against his body are phenomenal. None of these other quarterbacks, Shedeur, Cam Moore, have made some of those dramatic, all-inspiring throws that Jaxson Dart did during the course of this past season, really during his career at Ole Miss once he left USC. So I think Jaxson Dart, I wouldn't say grows on you, but the more you watch him, the more you say, wow, why is he ranked so low? Now, you haven't moved him up much. I have a little bit. Jaxson Dart, to me, is very intriguing. I like the skill set. I love the mindset as well with this kid.
Mel, forgive me for a second. My IFB cut out, and I'm being serious here. When you said what number you think you'll have him around, did you say 15?
Yeah.
15, okay. All right, so we're going to be 20 spots apart. And here's the reality, is there's a pretty decent chance, Mel, that you'll end up being closer to the pin as far as where he goes, right? Because we do think.
But see, that's the thing, Phil. We should never care about the
not on the ratings part,
we
right?
We just rate the players based on that. Wherever they go, they go. I think Dart could go as high as 9. I said that to him with New Orleans.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of, I just don't like. I look at the gaps. I don't like to have gaps between guys be so dramatic when there's really not that much separating. So that's why I closed Dart with the other quarterbacks. I do think after Dart, I'm a little different than other people. Some people think Dart and Tyler Shuck are close. I think Dart, and there's a gap to Tyler Shuck, but we'll see about what happens come draft day on that one.
All right, well, coming up, we have more fun debates to get into as we get further and further away from pick number 1. Stick around here for more First Draft. All righty, welcome back to First Draft. He's Mel Kiper Jr. I am Field Yates. We're going to wrap up my top 50 prospects, plus we're going to get into some of the guys that we love, who deserve more love. Let's go to prospects 36 through 50 here, Mel. I said in the last block, 20 through 40 looks pretty similar to me. I'm not so sure that 40 for 50 looks that different to me either. Some of the names here, Mel. Jaden Higgins from Iowa State at 38. Moving on up. Tyler Booker moving down here. He's at 36 for me. We keep moving forward from 36 to 42 to the next portion of the rankings, which gets us to 43 through 50, and that includes Azareye'h Thomas at 43, my guy Jack Besh at 46, and to wrap things up here, Mel, we have Darius Alexander, defensive tackle from Toledo, and Elijah Arroyo at 48 and 49, plus JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State at 50. Arroyo at 49 here, Mel. And I think you may have a couple guys you want to take me to task on. Do those two players late in that slate of rankings catch your eye for good or bad reasons?
Yeah, I think they catch my eye because I think a little too low. I think Carson Schwarzenegger was way too low from UCLA. One of the more entertaining players to watch on tape. I think he's a guy, I think he could be in my top 25 or borderline top 25 after all said and done. Ooh. But I think Darius Alexander's versatility gets my attention. Elijah Arroyo being able to stretch the deep middle gets my attention. But let's go to Alexander first, coming out at Mid-American Conference. A kid who has, you look at the skill of Darius Alexander where you can move him around up front. Teams love that. You saw about the Philadelphia Eagles late first round. Teams in that second round area are going to love this kid. Coming out of the same school that Quinyon Mitchell came out of last year as a first round pick and had a great rookie year. Key entity on that Super Bowl winning Eagle team. I love a guy who has the talent and plays to that talent. We see a lot of defensive linemen come through the ranks. They have the ability to take over games in the Mid-American Conference and weren't able to do it. They flashed. Darius Alexander isn't just a flash guy. He's more consistent than that. And that's what I loved. And I love that versatility. I think that's a little bit low for him. I think he's a really good defensive lineman who you can do. Scheme versatility he has.
We'll get to Arroyo in a second here. It's a great reason, though, Mel, why there might be a better version of grading for us. It's just not practical when you're trying to feed it to hopefully millions of people that see and watch and read this stuff. But first-year starter, first-year Pro Bowl potential might make a whole lot more sense, right? Because there are a lot of guys that, again, I don't dislike Darius Alexander. I've got him going very high in the 2-round mock draft that drops on Wednesday. It's just that there are also a lot of guys that fill into that same category. All right, Elijah Arroyo, briefly here, Mel. Supercharged athlete from Miami, averaged nearly 17 yards per catch last season. Wouldn't surprise me if he is the third tight end off the board, but we've got 4 great ones in this year's class.
Everything came together for Cam Ward this year because of having Elijah Arroyo. Elijah Arroyo was a key guy for Cam Ward, and he made so many big plays. You go about a guy plays like a wide receiver in a tight end frame, H-back frame. You talk about a guy who, when he was healthy, and that's the thing, he's got the durability concern is there with Elijah Arroyo, but when he's healthy, when he's at 100%, he is a nightmare to try to match up with. And Cam Ward was able to benefit from Arroyo putting together that career season at Miami. I think when you look at the top 2 tight ends, you say, okay, it's Tyler Warren for me, Colston Loveland. They're close. Then Elijah Arroyo, a little bit of a gap there, but not as dramatic as you have at Field. And then Mason Taylor you get into from LSU. People have had Taylor at 3. I have Arroyo solidly at 3. To me, he's the guy. He's the guy that somebody is going to say, boy, the way the game's played now, the way we can move him around, we talked about that chess piece, he is a nightmare. He is a guy who can be down the field catching the football like a wide receiver, yet he can do the dirty things. He can do the dirty work as well. To me, Elijah Arroyo, a little underpublicized for the kind of year he had and the kind of talent he possesses.
Yeah, I mean, he had a marvelous year. I mentioned it, 16.9 yards per catch last season, Mel. If you take away tight ends that had fewer than 10 catches last year, he was the best in all of the FBS amongst tight ends. He is clearly the best big play threat amongst these tight ends that we are talking about in this 2 pairing right here. He was phenomenal after the catch. They completely had no answer for him on a lot of Saturdays this past year. It's close, Mel. I think the more complete, well-rounded player is Mason Taylor, who also ran a solid pro day time around, I think, 4.6 or so for LSU. Great pedigree right there, by the way, of course, for Mason Taylor, the nephew of Zach Taylor, and, of course, the son of Jason Taylor. Zach Thomas, of course, the nephew of Zach Thomas and the son of Jason Taylor. All right, we got to speed through the next segment here, Mel, so we're going to wrap up the top 50 right now and move to our Orange Crushers and our guys. Always one of our favorite portions of the show. That is coming up next. Stick around for the final part of this week's First Draft. All right, we are back here on First Draft. He's Mel Kiper Jr. I am Field Yates. And, Mel, about every week we give you a guy and we give you an Orange Crusher as well. But we're going to begin with the guys who are our guys, players that we just feel like if we were in a draft room right now, we're taking that gavel, we're banging it, and we're saying, let's go, baby. Give me this player on my football team. My 2-round mock draft drops on Wednesday. And, Mel, I'm not to spoil it all, but your guy is going to make it into my 2-round mock draft.
Yeah, he looks like a second rounder right now. Jacob Parrish, cornerback out of Kansas State. You talk about a guy aggressive, highly competitive, the great feel and coverage, the ball skills, the footwork. Talk about a guy who had 16 pass breakups, 5 interceptions over the last 2 years. Now, you think about 5'10", 191, right? 37.5 vertical, ran 4.35. Track star in high school, played wide receiver, played running back, played in the defensive secondary, played basketball. Just turned 21 years of age, Field. He loves that challenge of going one-on-one. He was outside. He'll be a slot corner in the NFL. He gets a little handsy, gets a little grabby. Now, in the NFL, you don't get away with that. In college, you can get away with that. So he's got to clean that up. A lot of these corners do. That's what they get away with. Why not, right? If you get away with it, let's do it. Yeah. In the NFL, that's got to change. But Jacob Parrish, I love the attitude. I love the intensity. I love the desire, the aggressiveness. I tell you, he's got that ability. You talk about that temperament. He'll tackle. There's no question he'll tackle. But he's feisty. Feisty slot corner, second rounder, Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State.
You know, Mel, we've talked at times about players where like they might not have that pristine 40 time. Azareye'h Thomas from Florida State's a good example. Maybe Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, although because he is recovering, we don't have a specific number on that one. But when the guys run the really fast 40 times, you want it to apply and matter, right? Like Max Hairston plays fast. Jacob Parrish plays fast with that 4.35 40. Agree with that pick right there. Again, not to spoil the entirety of it, but he does make the second round of the 2-round mock draft. My guy this week here, Mel, is a player who I don't even think he made it to the combine.
No, he did not.
Chandler Martin, linebacker from Memphis. Let me ask you a question here, Mel. How's 7 sacks from an inside linebacker sound? Sounds pretty good to me. Last year, Chandler Martin had 7 sacks, some of them coming off the edge, some of them as a blitzer from a stand-up inside linebacker spot. You got to play fast in today's NFL. I was talking about how you got some of these quarterbacks that are just elite athletes. I'm not sure how many linebackers I would prefer patrolling the middle of the field when you've got a quarterback like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels or Josh Allen opposite of you, because this guy absolutely flies. He plays with his hair on fire. He doesn't have sideline to sideline range, Mel. He's got one side of the stadium to the other side of the stadium range. This might be one of the best athletes at linebacker in the entire class. Does he have great size? He doesn't, Mel. I'll tell you what, though. I think the size wasn't much of a problem at all. He feels like a modern version of what the NFL is looking for in linebackers right now. I've got a 4th-round grade on this kid. Once we get to day 3, Mel, so much stuff can be subjective, but give me Chandler Martin in the 4th round. This kid is an absolute baller.
You jumped in before I could get Chandler Martin. When I saw that, I said, oh, my gosh.
Great pick.
Yeah, you jumped in on Chandler. He was not invited to the combine. He's one of 13 guys that weren't invited to the combine that I think will play in the NFL.
Yep.
And they forget, Memphis Tigers, not a lot of respect. Remember Blake Watson last year?
Yeah.
Not invited to the combine, running back, liked him.
Yep.
It's a guy I think will make a team, will contribute. And I tell you what, his instincts, the diagnostic ability of Chandler Martin, outstanding. And I love versatility of players. He can do it in a lot of different ways. To me, he's a day 3 guy. We're certainly going to be talking about him in Green Bay on Saturday of day 3. Chandler Martin's a nice player. You stole one from me there. Field, good job.
Well, we can share him on draft day. Hey, make a note to our producer, the great Rob Adamski. Mel and I will both talk about Chandler Martin on day 3.
I'll piggyback on that with you.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? The thing is, like Mel, though, on day 3, I was thinking about this because I was looking at my big board from last year, and we see where guys go a little bit higher than expected, a little bit lower than expected. I kind of put guys on day 3 almost into 2 categories. Like, I'd feel great about them on day 3 is one category, and then they'll probably go on day 3 is a different category. So the guys that I feel great about on day 3 are kind of going to be like 4th, 5th round grades. The guys who I'm less optimistic on but still expect them to get drafted, I put into that second category of more like 6th, 7th, or even priority free agent grades. Give me Chandler Martin in that first category. I just love everything about the way this guy plays. The tempo that he plays the football game at is ridiculous. He had an explosive last year, a breakout season. I hope he is rewarded with a high draft pick on day 3 because he deserves to be it, in my opinion. All right, so the last segment here, Mel, is, of course, our Orange Crushers. And we saved a little bit of time. We got some time to let these breathe a little bit. These are the players who we think deserves a little bit more national love. And let's begin, Mel, down in Chapel Hill. That's what they're calling it now, with Bill Belichick as the new head coach for North Carolina. Who do you got?
Never too early for an Orange Crush. I'll tell you, my Orange Crusher, it jumped out. It screamed Willie Lampkin. Willie Lampkin wasn't invited to the combine field, okay? 5'10 and a half, right? 270 pounds. How the heck's he going to play center guard in the NFL? This guy played it in college at Coastal Carolina and played it at North Carolina at right guard spot. Outstanding player. I talk about knocked back, yet he can re-anchor. You talk about a guy, Seals, his positional ability, the way how smart he is as a player, okay? Agile, gets to the second level. I talk about Jacob Parrish, how competitive he is. There's nobody more competitive than a kid like Willie Lampkin. Outstanding against Florida State with those defensive linemen. That jumped out at me as well. And I'll tell you what, it's been discussed with Willie Lampkin. Whether center, guard, can you do it at 5'10 and a half, 270? And guess what, Field? He went up against guys that we're projecting in that second, third round area at the defensive tackle spot. And guess what? He got the best of them.
Yeah, Josh Farmer, Florida State.
How about fullback? How about a guy who can just get in there at fullback spot? Patrick Ricard was D lineman at Maine. Look what he's done with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm telling you, in the 6th, 7th round, I'm drafting Willie Lampkin. This guy I want on my team. He says he wants to be a coach. He wants to be a future NFL Hall of Famer. Set your sights high. Willie Lampkin, nobody can deny what he's accomplished. Nobody will ever be able to deny Willie Lampkin a spot in the NFL. He will. Russell Wilson beat all odds in the 3rd round at time. But he said 5'10 and a half, 5'10 and 3/4. Nah, 3rd round. Russell Wilson was a test case. Willie Lampkin is going to be a great test case. At that size, can you play in the NFL? At that center position, Field, I wouldn't bet against him. At worst, he's a fullback, which you can take that. Patrick Ricard, last time I checked, did he make the Pro Bowl?
Like every year, yeah. I like the idea here, Mel, because I was thinking about it. Full disclosure, as I'm making my big board, I graded Willie Lampkin as an offensive lineman. And I went priority free agent. And it's not because I don't love the player. It's because I don't think a team is going to use a draft pick on a 5'10", 273 pounds offensive lineman. History would tell us that's probably not likely. But you just sparked an idea in my brain. Like, because I think that the way that he gets drafted, and you're making, because I wanted to give this guy like a round 5 grade. I just love watching the player, but it's just hard to do with the dimensions he plays at. But it's making me realize.
One thing for you.
Go ahead.
One thing. 47-0 as a wrestler, state champion wrestler, senior in high school.
Yeah, I mean, total sense,
47-0. Okay.
Yeah.
Mac Brown raved about this kid. Raved about him. Mac Brown's coached a lot of guys moving forward to the NFL. Yeah. Okay. From Wallace Boston College. Okay. Won the national championship at Texas. Mac Brown understands who can play and who can't play. Willie Lampkin's, I think, one of his favorite players of all time. So for Willie Lampkin, bet against him. Keep doing it. Keep betting against him.
I don't want to.
And we forget. 10th, 11th, 12th rounders used to make it big in the NFL. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th rounders. I'm not going to waste your time with that laundry list of names, but there's a lot of them I could rattle off. We don't have, those rounds don't exist anymore. So for Fielding to say he could be an undrafted free agent, I'm old enough to remember a 17-round draft, certainly a 12-round draft. Now we got 7 rounds. Nothing wrong with being undrafted. Some doggone good players go undrafted in a 7-round draft.
I like the idea. Now I'm saying this just sparks something for me. Like, I'm going to go back and update my grade because I'm going to imagine a team is innovative enough to say, well, maybe we try him at offensive line. But worst case scenario is he becomes this super sub as a fullback that plays in specialty packages.
He's making my team, Field. He's making my team.
I know.
You are not keeping this kid off your team.
I love watching him. You're not. No,
and I'll tell you what, he looks to me, I look at the Steelers. And I look at that offensive line going way back to the Mike Webster days coming out. And by the way, Field, his arm length was, I believe, 32. Willie Lampkin. Longer arms than Monheim, right? Same arm length, I believe, as Gray Zabel, right? You got Gray Zabel high on your board,
17th,
right?
baby. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you.
Arm length's not a problem for Willie Lampkin. At his size, 32 arms, he's almost as Will Campbell.
Yeah, I know. My guy, Will Campbell. Willie Lampkin, safe to say, he is your favorite offensive lineman's favorite offensive lineman. Really fun player. We'll see where he lands.
I'll tell you what. You want to have fun watching tape? Go watch Willie Lampkin. Fun guy to watch. I'll tell you, this guy gets after you, pal. He gets after it, play in and play out. I'll say this. I'll make you a bet right now. He's on an NFL roster come September.
Sure. I mean, does that mean practice squad included or no?
No, on an active roster.
Active roster. I'll take practice squad there on that one. And we'll see. I don't know what the stakes are on that bet. We'll have to.
No.
I want
orange crush and a crab cake dinner. A couple orange crushes and a couple crab cakes.
All right, I'll take that deal right there because I want to eat well and drink right one day down at the Kiper compound.
Oh, yeah.
All right, last one here, Mel, from me. So I've got this wide receiver class a lot, and I feel like while it's not great at the top, Mel, I kind of like some of the depth. And do you like big, fast wide receivers? Because I sure do. How about KeAndre Lambert-Smith from Auburn, who spent his final year there down, what do they call it, between the hedges, or is that Georgia? I'm probably screwing that up.
That's Georgia.
Okay, yep. My bad. War Eagle. Anyways, he spent 4 years at Penn State. He ends up at Auburn. And this was not an unproductive player, by the way, at Penn State. He is the only player in the history of the Nittany Lions program with 2 receptions of at least 80 yards. He had an 88-yard catch back in 2023. Like, this guy can flat out fly. 4.37 at 6'1", 190-ish pounds, Mel. This guy is legit on the perimeter. This past season had some good production, nearly 20 yards per catch for KeAndre Lambert-Smith. He field flips the game. If you're looking for a player who, on one moment's notice, can take an offense that is totally down in the dregs and with one catch get some energy boosted into it, KeAndre Lambert-Smith is one of the guys that is on my radar. At the top of this year's draft class, we've got some guys that are either big but not fast, like Tedero McMillan, or smaller, not small, but smaller, like Matthew Golden, but very fast. As you move down the board, you've got more of these guys with a little bit more size and plenty of speed. KeAndre Lambert-Smith is one of those names for me. I just tell you what, this guy just popped. Like, he was just explosive for Auburn this past season, and he has been barely talked about in the pre-draft process. Somewhere on day 3, give me KeAndre Lambert-Smith.
Yeah, wide receiver is not a good position this year.
No.
You will see a 5th, 6th rounder outproduce some 2nd, 3rd rounders, I believe, at the wide receiver spot this year.
All right, there you have it. KeAndre Lambert-Smith from Auburn. We'll talk to you about you more in Green Bay. As always, thank you for watching us here on First Draft. We are back again on Thursday and then right here on the TV next Monday. For Mel, I am Field. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts or watch us over on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys again soon. My new mock draft on Wednesday.